Hello everyone, my name is Tina, and welcome to my Genshin channel. We had a very long special program with an extreme amount of lore and gameplay elements as well, so I will make two separate videos. This first one entitled dedicated to the new lore that we have not heard before, and the other one will be coming about everything else. So without further ado, the very first line in the trailer talking about how somewhere in Nod-Krai is where the twins' spaceship landed, and that the traveler only remembers the sibling waking them up and leaving the ship. I've seen a lot of confusion about how that's possible. Even after the 5.7 Archon quest, people were thinking about now the very beginning of Genshin just doesn't make sense. But I don't get how. Like, sure, in the moment I was also surprised by the spaceship, but reading the lore back, it all made perfect sense from the start, even if certain parts were not planned. The story goes like, the twins crash landed in Tibet with their spaceship, still hibernated in their pods. We literally talk about it with Downslave in our very first ever quest together. We tell him that our first memory of Tibet was our sibling waking us up in a meteorite. Like, to be fair, at that time when I played the quest, I didn't think of any spaceship. But on a second thought, what are spaceships built outside our world if not just simple meteorites? And it also could just simply be a translation error, which there have been a few early on in the story. In Chinese, one of the most common ways to say meteorite is a fallen rock. Here though, they use the word for a fallen star. Usually, this still means a traditional meteorite, but it could have a broader meaning, anything star-shaped from the space, fallen down to Earth, like a star-shaped spaceship. The sibling wakes up first, now we know in Nod-Krai, but we also know that Nod-Krai is next to Caria. That's why they were one of the first one affected by the cataclysm after Caria. So the sibling probably just starts walking, eventually reaching Caria and becoming their savior. Their memories started to slowly come back, but at that point Irmin has already named them as his successor, and the sibling was already toying with forbidden knowledge, which eventually led to the cataclysm. At that point the sibling remembered everything, and they did say they were conflicted already. After that we know, unfortunately thanks to Diddy, the sibling gets some fake news thinking that the traveler is already awake, so they rush back to Nod-Krai to leave Tibet. This is not even that weird to happen, like sure the sibling loved Caria, but the thought of the traveler now being all alone in such a disaster probably flipped the switch in them. And after they realized it was a big hoax, they still opened the pod, deciding that if they committed, they should leave now. That was when the traveler first saw Tibet, and actually, oh boy, I wanna come back to this point, but just to finish the story, they tried to leave just using their wings. Why? Could be a lot of reasons, honestly. Maybe the ship was not working from the crash. Maybe they just wanted to go to the next moon just a short distance until the cataclysm was over. Maybe they were just out to fight components to fix the spaceship. It honestly doesn't even really matter because what unfolded after, we all know. And all of this perfectly fit into the story without any retcon. So why is our spaceship now hidden? Where is it hidden even? We don't know that yet, but could be now that we know the full story about our arrival, we might try to maybe fix it or just find out more about it. Could be that it was the Abby's sibling who hid it away from us. Maybe to prevent us from leaving Tibet now for some reason. The special program put a lot of emphasis on the Shades video, so one crazy theory could be that it was Asmodai who took it for a ride and that's why it's nowhere to be found. Could be the Fatui is using it to learn more about extraterrestrial technology as well. Still, I just wanted to summarize the events because I've seen so many confused people about that, including me before I read like 2 hours worth of lore. Now, I just mentioned, when the traveler first woke up, they saw the cataclysm. And there is something very suspicious happening about that, because in the Welkin Moon item description, which probably no one has seen, since I don't mean when you buy a Welkin Moon, I mean when it's gifted to you by some event, the description says, for your purposes, the new moon you shall pray to is the first ever new moon in Tibet, since it's the first one you've seen here. The first moon we've seen? Was the Welkin Moon visible during the cataclysm? We do see a big one in the We Will Be Reunited video, but that just looks like the frost moon. Unless... theory time, baby! What if the moon we see on the sky is not the frost moon? We already have a fake sky. A fake moon wouldn't be that much of a reach. And this is a perfect time to talk about Columbina too, because she did have some very saucy lines once again in this trailer. After Lauma saying that the prophecy of Columbina returning came true, but not quite the way they thought, Columbina says, I still wish to return to the moon that belongs to me. In Japanese, she's even more explicitly saying that that is her moon. What if what we see is actually not the frost moon, but already the Welkin Moon, which belongs to her? Oh, and also, return? What do you mean, return? You've already been there? There are massive holes in our knowledge about the moons, and Columbina once again warning us after already saying the Veil of Lies is sleeping in the previous trailer, that take care, the moon can be treacherous. In Japanese, once again, it's even more suspicious, literally saying that be careful because the moon is lying. The Frost Moon Scions are waiting for a new moon goddess, the Welkin Moon, and now that she's here, she's claiming ownership of the Frost Moon? No, I think she's talking about her Welkin Moon that we see on the sky. Did I get any new followers in my fake moon cult now? That would explain why the Fatui is after the Frost Moon Scions relic that can see the real past. If the real past contains information about the whereabouts and a confirmation of the real Frost Moon. Loma wants to piece information together about her tribe, which used to be the inhabitants of the Golden City Hyperborea before it was struck down by a celestial nail and sung. That place, Hyperborea, came up many other occasions too, like the very suspicious line of Zhiqiang before she went missing for good, talking about some kind of a vision. It's also not entirely impossible that the real moon would be hidden in Hyperborea. Be it in Hyperborea or anywhere else, if the Fatui knew more about it, they could harness its full power. For now, they only harness power of the moon fragments, but the full moon, that would be more powerful than anything in Tibet. And this operation seems to be led by Sandrone. So let's talk about her. Seems like she would be greeting us in Nod-Krai, which kinda makes sense. It's most likely that she's the one who made Catherine, and given the fact that she thinks Nod-Krai belongs to the Fatui, it's also likely the voice line we see later happens at the greeting too. However, there is something weird about this encounter, since this is the first time she is not with her robot, and we cannot even be truly sure she is the one greeting us, and not just another puppet. I'd like to bring back an old theory here about who actually is Sandrone, because I feel like this is all but confirmed at this point. Her name being Marionette has made people believe that she's actually a robot for so many years at this point, and now this is the second time we see her full design with a winding key looking like thing on her back. People actually thought for a long time that she cannot even walk and it's a robot who's controlling her, but we finally saw Sandrone on her feet. However, this still wouldn't disapprove one of the most famous theories about her, being that she was made by none other than Ellen Guillotine. This is a pretty old theory at this point, so I don't want to harp on it too much. I just want to quickly present all the facts. We know that Ellen was a famous engineer who built, among many other things, artificial intelligences like Seymour. He loved his sister Marianne, who tragically died in an explosion, and in his later years he went exile, where all we know is that the only things that could be found in his personal workshop were signs that something had been built. So where do we know this from? From the Masterpieces Overture artifact, a portable tool used to adjust the torque on some old school clockwork machine. Adjust the torque just like a winding key, kinda. And would absolutely explain the insane punishment that she did to I don't even know how to pronounce that. The guy who destroyed Curve. Even more proof be that it seems like a robot has anemo power, and since anemo usually implies the loss of someone close, if Ellen really made Sandrone in mourning the loss of Marianne, and later on in some ways transform his consciousness into the robot, that would all just fit so well into everything. Nonetheless, this is probably a theory that will either be proven or disproven for good in Luna 1. The Fatui's plan will be at full force soon, them wanting to take the relic from the Scions, though the Scions aren't messing around either, saying they will draw a border in the snow with the Fatui's blood, the border meaning likely at the edge of the snowy Chesnea. However, no matter the lengths the Fatui would go, the scene when we see the Canon being taken over, actually I don't think would be the doing of the Fatui. The Canon destroys every region, be it the Voynich Guild, the Hishi Island, or even the Fatui base in Pahaios. So at that time, I don't think it was operated by any of those factions. And even though Nefer was talking about how her fraction, the Curatorium of Secrets, stays neutral, obviously I wouldn't expect that neutrality to be destroying everyone equally either. That leaves us with two options. Either it is indeed the Fatui's doing, they are just unable to aim the machine properly, or it could also be the Wild Hunt, maybe potentially the Abyss Order as well, led by our sibling. While the people of Nod-Krai suspect that our sibling would collide with the Fatui, honestly I don't even really think that's the case. Since again, the Canon did target the Fatui facilities as well, the most I can see is them just teaming up temporarily to steal away the relic from the Scions. And we see a lot of factions fighting back. We see Loma in the Purple Mist too, but we also see Flins, so it's time to talk about him too. He has been aura forming us for months now, both online and offline too, but other than his extremely cool style, we don't know that much about his background. We know that his family were also Lightkeepers, given the fact that his dad's grave was featured in one of the first trailers already. We also know that he used to have more colleagues, but one operation in the long past to repel the Abyss ended in tragedy that only Flins survived. He's deliberately not speaking of his past, and we might actually know why. What if Flins is not a human? Or at least, what if he was not born as a human? There are two very suspicious signs for that, with the first one being his line of viewing the world through human eyes is like looking into a kaleidoscope. It is so complex and yet so beautiful. Talking about how weird the world is through the human eyes sound weird if he was always a human. And the other thing is that, while for every other character, the Wild Hunt will just consist of weird mumbling, when playing him, you will actually hear what the monsters are saying. Hoyo, you don't have to convince me this hard. I would have already pulled for him, but now I must, to learn more about the story. The Wild Hunt though is also acting weird, especially the line talking about how humans should bow down in front of the light. Sounds really weird. Why would the Abyss, the Void Realm, would say such a thing? Especially given the fact that both the Light Tower and Flins' lantern use light to repel the Abyss. I have no idea what is the context behind that line, but again, we will find out soon. The Lightkeepers hold many secrets, as you know from the Long Night's Oath artifact set, so we should be finding out more about the Mad Monk who tried to break out from the fake sky alongside the first Cryo-Archon. We should be finding out more about the first Cryo-Archon's followers, the Snowland Fae, and also about the two friends whose legacy is still important these days, one being Reed Miller, who was mentioned by name in the stream, having said that he had the treasure before his execution. These words lured adventurers to Nod-Krai, pursuing dreams greater than they ever dared to imagine. This is time known as Song of the Welkin Moon. And the other one being the first Torchforger who ended up forming the Lightkeepers. But this mysterious light is not the only power in Nod-Krai. Actually, likely this light is also the force known as Kuuvahki, which is Finnish for moonlight, the power of the moon. Everything in Nod-Krai is powered by that, and we often see it represented with the blue and the red color. In puzzles especially, it's used kind of like magnets, them attracting or repelling each other. You can see it everywhere, even the Fatu is harvesting that. But I want to talk about one place in specific, when there are two fragments, potentially moon fragments, one being blue and one being red. This place is super mysterious, since I talked about this in many of my previous videos, but if you check the resources in the Nod-Krai map site, you can see all the icons there on the map except for this place. The icon is in the resources file, but not on the map. Moreover, the map has a mysterious foggy part still left undiscovered, so this new place might actually be there and holding many secrets that for some reason we cannot see for now. Still, one thing is sure, it's always blue and red, except for when it's golden. Yes, the golden threads are also something I talked about before. They were present in not only the Nod-Krai map, but also this trailer. We have seen it when reconstructing the big monolith in the middle of Hishi Island. Weirdly enough, we could also see similar golden threads even in the Night Kingdom, very dominantly when we are about to beat the Bakunawa. So the meaning behind the golden threads is still unsolved, but it's definitely meaning something. And if we are the Kuuvahki, we also need to talk about the Kuuhenki 2, the new guide friend we will get. I can already see Paimon will have a few lines about being replaced as our guide, but this guy is very special. We see it has a blue state by default, but can also turn red in puzzles to be on the other side of the Kuuvahki force. And similar to that word, Kuuhenki also comes from Finnish, and it means moon spirit. And just how every single previous summer event foreshadowed future events, I immediately thought of the Ashas, who are also spirits. But what could the Kuuhenki be? Might be a spirit of some ancient inhabitant of the land, might be even related to the first angel. We will meet Nico soon, who also has very angel elements. And again, have to bring up Shicheong and her talking about the heavenly voice, the angels in Hyperborea. They are all connected, and I wouldn't be surprised if we find out more about not just them, but also maybe the Voyager, who was the reason for the angels losing their form. And as I said before, everything in Nod-Krai uses Kuuvahki, and that could also explain something I was wondering about beforehand. Aino and her vision. If you remember, she has a vision, not a moon wheel. However, that would prevent her from being in lunar reactions, and thus it would be locked behind only 5-star characters. Even in Netland, we got Kachina for free, so we get the new stuff from the get-go. So I would expect the same thing in Nod-Krai with Aino. A potential explanation how she would still be able to use lunar reactions with just a vision is Kuuvahki. She is a genius inventor and she uses Kuuvahki in many of her inventions. It's possible that she's infusing that Kuuvahki into her vision power, thus making it react in a lunar way. Obviously, most people would use her with Inefa or with Flins, who already has lunar charges, but I think it would be a clever way for Aino to do lunar reactions even by herself and still stay true to her lore. She was also the one who built the Canon in Nesha Town, as I talked about beforehand, and could also potentially play a part how to defuse that against whoever is wreaking havoc in Nod-Krai. And that leaves us with just a few other characters to talk about briefly. We have seen Yahoda, one of Aino's friends, helping us infiltrate the Fatui base. Yahoda also works alongside Nefer in the Curatorium of Secrets, where we will be able to find out secret stories about the moon in the company of her cute little black cat as well. Nefer also has very Sumerian style clothing, which could indicate that she is originally from there, but also could be that she has connections to potentially the ancient technology from the time of King Desert. And talking about Sumeru, Dori will also make an appearance in Nod-Krai, which is not that surprising, since she is one of the most famous merchants. Her being in the merchant town is pretty expected. And that's about all the new lore we got from this Luna 1 special program. Keep in mind that these were just the lore nuggets. It was a really long stream, and if I included everything, this video would be an hour long that no one would wanna watch. So expect another video in a few days just focused on the new changes coming to the game as well, because there are a lot of exciting events happening both inside and outside the game as well. But for now, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to give a like, and if you want to see more content like this, then make sure to subscribe. I will see you on my Genshin channel, and see you in the next one. Bye bye!